quickly. Settle down.
In 1911, when getting an airplane up in the air still seemed something of a miracle, Second Lieutenant Henry Hap Arnold was engaged in a project having nothing at all to do with flight and everything to do with launching his military career. He was trying very hard to become a first lieutenant. Orville and Wilbur Wright had demonstrated their flyer to the War Department in 1904. Though the Army at first turned the Wrights down, it didn't take long for the brass to change its mind and initiate an experimental aviation squadron. When Hap's commanding officer heard that Arnold was planning to volunteer for flight training, he said that he knew of no better way for a promising young officer to commit suicide. Hap signed on anyway. In school at the Wright Brothers Field in Dayton, the cadets started out with the basics, learning first the simple aeronautical nomenclature of the times and then, finally, learning how to fly. In a letter from Dayton to his skeptical former chief signal officer, Arnold reported his progress. "Sir, I have the honor to report the following progress made by me in learning to operate a Wright airplane. During the week, I've made 12 flights with an instructor and 1 flight by myself. My instruction under the supervision of the instructor in the machine is finished, and from now on, all of my flights will be made alone for experience. Very respectfully, Henry H. Arnold, 2nd Lieutenant, 24th Infantry." Hap was one of the first to earn his wings as a pilot in the United States Army. In later years, he never lost the glow of pride and the respect for this symbol of achievement, and he reveled in every aspect of flight. He was the first to win the McKay Trophy for air reconnaissance, and in 1912, he set a high-altitude record of 6,450 feet. He was also one of the first couriers in the earliest days of airmail service. That diversity of experience pushed him into the front ranks of military aviation. He was quick to grasp not only the need for better aircraft, but for better pilots and flight crews as well. As an aviation instructor, he helped design the curriculum that guided a generation of flyers. As America entered World War I, most Americans were barely aware of aviation's military potential. Suddenly, there was a desperate need for trained pilots. They were recruited from all the services, carefully selected for their intelligence and quick reflexes under stress. More important was the need for aircraft. Administrative problems, including aircraft production, became Hap's responsibility. Working on the home front, Hap learned some crucial lessons that would have great meaning in his later years. He learned first and foremost that mobilization for war is not a fast process. Designing and producing aircraft takes years, not months. Many of the planes and engines ordered for the war were finished too late for combat. Hap firmly resolved that America would not be caught short again. With the war over, the nation relaxed. Hap and other American airmen, however, faced a great challenge. It was in the post-war years that the American Air Force had to prove its significance. The flyers out to prove their worth went to work. Billy Mitchell used some old German battleships to prove that precision bombing could be effective at sea. Engineers developed safer parachutes, and racers pushed the speed records higher and higher. Airborne observers spotted forest fires before they could rage out of control, while the Signal Corps experimented with photo reconnaissance. In the winter of 1932, Arnold himself directed the first humanitarian airdrops of food to snowbound Indians in the American Southwest. Despite the peacetime disinterest in things military, Arnold and the others were slowly building the Air Corps. The fleet of aircraft, while small, modernized, with new and more capable models coming online. Still, Arnold retained a balance in his life. These old movies show him at home, passing the time with his family and vividly illustrating why in his days at West Point, the cadets nicknamed him Hap. The family reflects his good humor, and though he is growing older and wiser, he still exudes the quality of joy and optimism for which millions will soon know him. In 1934, the first B-10 rolled off the assembly lines. It was an all-metal bomber capable of carrying a 2,000-pound bomb load, the fastest bomber in the world at the time. Under Hap's command, the B-10 undertook a long-range test flight from Washington, D.C. to Fairbanks, Alaska, to determine the feasibility of air operations in that part of the globe. Even under extreme Arctic conditions, the mission went flawlessly. On his return, Hap was honored with the McKay Trophy a second time. In 1938, on the day before Hitler won a victory at Munich, Major General Hap Arnold was appointed Chief of the U.S. Army Air Corps. From the beginning, Arnold was a trusted advisor to the Commander-in-Chief. Roosevelt respected his judgment, and together, they recognized that the time to build and expand had become precious. With the world gearing up for war, the United States desperately needed aircraft for ground support, fighter bombers, long-range bombers, and fast interceptors. Remembering the First World War, Hap pressed for production levels that would support a global conflict, a war of far greater proportions than the world had ever known. The task was Herculean, but he kept with him the lesson he had learned from the Wright brothers. Anything is possible. Hap believed that, in spite of opposition from those who, even at this late date, felt that the ocean was all the protection the United States needed. Pearl Harbor proved them wrong, of course, bringing into focus the need for huge quantities of aircraft and vast numbers of men to fly and maintain them. Well aware of the time and money involved, Hap had been steadily extending the Army Air Corps training program, coordinating the growth of manpower with the increase in equipment. Since 1939, he had fostered the idea of having civilian schools help to train pilots in the first stage. Army Air Corps training had been systematized, and it would include many young men from all walks of life. Arnold had the huge task of planning American air power for a worldwide battlefield. Early in the war, isolated operations began to foreshadow the future effect of long-range bombing. The daring low-level raid on Tokyo was a carefully designed attack which brought home to Japan the real meaning of war. The leader of this successful mission, Jimmy Doolittle, was welcomed home by a much gratified chief. Hap always took great pride in the achievements of his men, and they were made aware of his personal interest. In the following months, in battle against the Luftwaffe, American pilots demonstrated the kind of bravery that did credit to the Army Air Corps and that heartened the nation. Whenever the opportunity afforded, there were frequent visits to his men. Always, Hap was received with enthusiasm and affection. No commander was better liked, more deeply respected. As he went about building American air power, a concept began to form in his mind. Now, he saw the strength possible in mass formations of long-range bombers, each a fortress in the air, a multitude of flying fortresses pounding the enemy into submission. Air supremacy, the mother lode, the greatest challenge of his life. With production chief Bill Knudsen, he toured plants and factories. As time went on, his reputation grew. Deadly serious, but always good-natured, this was the way Hap did business.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. You know, Doctor, after looking over my audience, I'm going to give my prepared speech back to Captain Sheffield. And if you want it for your record, you can ask Captain Sheffield for it. And I'm sure that he'll be glad to give it to you. Now on with the show. I think that you people here are entitled to a little bit of background on this thing that we call air power.
Air power. No one was better suited to talk about it than Hap, or better able to put words into action, to mold our Air Force into the strongest in the world. Hap's keen awareness of the significance of air power made him invaluable on the international scene. As the Allies coalesced into an efficient whole, at conferences from Washington to Casablanca, Arnold lobbied for mass daylight raids against Germany. The plan was not greeted with favor. The British preferred night bombing, choosing the relative safety of darkness. Arnold argued, however, that daylight precision bombing could cause far greater devastation than was possible during darkness. In the end, the Americans bombed by day and the British by night. So it fell to Arnold to coordinate what became the most devastating and conclusive application of air power of the war, the systematic destruction of the German war machine. But Arnold's involvement did not end in Germany. In the Atlantic, German U-boats were seriously threatening the Allies' ability to keep their armies supplied. Arnold assigned B-24s to attack the submarines, and the tonnage lost to wolf packs dropped precipitously. In the Far East, there were other problems. Hap went over the air needs of this theater with General Joseph Stilwell and General Chennault. Here it was decided that a difficult flying route over the Himalayas could provide a flow of supplies to the Chinese. That effort, referred to by the pilots as flying over the hump, was one of the extraordinary accomplishments of the war. Hap, as commanding General U.S. Army Air Forces, was a member of the Allied staff which meant to determine the future course of the war. Here at the Cairo Conference and after at Quebec, Hap became known for his good judgment and common sense. Among leaders of other nations, Hap was not only the good-natured man with the encyclopedic knowledge of planes and all matters concerning air power, he was a first-rate diplomat upon whom our military staff could depend. By this time, there was complete acceptance of Hap's daylight bombing program, a personal victory that Hap would forever savor and that would, more importantly, speed Allied progress in the war. Because of the desperate need for pilots, Hap encouraged the creation of a women's branch of the Air Force. The women's air service pilots, known as the WASPs, flew cargo missions, ferried aircraft back and forth across the ocean, and maintained planes behind the lines, freeing hundreds of men for combat duty. At the first graduation ceremony, Hap was the honored guest. August 2nd, 1943, the 9th Air Force carried out a hazardous low-level raid on the Plasti oil fields in Romania. Plasti was the source of much of Hitler's precious fuel, and 177 B-24 Liberators from the Tripoli area caused serious damage. By 1944, the program for massive high-altitude air bombardment began to reach its peak. Every day, thousands of strategic bombers and their long-range fighter escorts crossed over German-held territory. There was no doubt that the effort was having an effect, but the question remained whether the effort could be maintained long enough to win the war. Arnold, who had learned long before that anything was possible, saw the answer in planning. He saw to it that the pilots, the planes, the fuel, and bombs all kept flowing. He made it clear that nothing would stand in the way of his plan to use air power to knock Germany out of the war. In the end, he achieved what he had set out to achieve: total air supremacy. The Allied bombers and fighters attacked Germany unmolested. At the Potsdam Conference, where the Big Three played their endgame for Europe, Arnold helped to plan the final victory in Asia. And after Potsdam, Hap, with the glow of victory still upon him, recognized the contributions of all the services in the defeat of Germany.
This is an appropriate occasion, for we are celebrating tonight the 38th birthday of military air power in the United States. At this time, the newest of the services acknowledge the debt it owes to the armies of our land and the navies of our seas. We dip our wings to their glorious traditions, and tonight particularly, I want also to salute all of those who fly and those who make flying possible, be they of the Marines or of the Navy, or in civilian aviation in any of its many forms, or in the Army Air Forces, for they have all played a part in winning this war.
Able to concentrate his full attention on the war with Japan, he flew to bases in the Pacific. Friendly and good-natured, he found out what he needed to know without seeming to try. Receptive and even-tempered, he was on the best of terms with his commanders and was always sensitive to their problems. In the Pacific, Arnold wielded a new weapon, one he had ushered into existence, the B-29. By far the largest airplane in the world, the so-called Super Fortress was the pioneer of intercontinental bombing. It could carry huge bomb loads thousands of miles and return safely to base, and eventually carried the war-ending atomic bombs. 3 months after VJ Day, General of the Army Henry Hap Arnold retired from the military. 2 years later, he saw his dream reach fruition when the War Department created the United States Air Force as a separate service equal to the Army and Navy. He died, a man fulfilled, 3 years later, and in January 1950, was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Much remains, however, to remind us of Hap Arnold's contribution. Fittingly, named for him is the Arnold Engineering Development Center in Tennessee. Here, Air Force engineers look far into the future, trying to develop the technology that will keep the United States Air Force strong into the next century. Perhaps most important to Arnold's memory is the Air Force Academy. The cadets of the Air Force Academy are all profoundly touched by a man who died long before any of them were born. He is reflected in their thoroughness and dedication, and the standards of the Academy stem in large measure from the example set by the first Air Force leader. A remarkable man, a remarkable life. Henry Hap Arnold, a hero.